One live stream, one fatal mistake. That's all it took to turn routine content creation into the most disturbing deaths ever broadcast in real time. When you're performing live, there's no second take, and no way to undo what thousands just witnessed. It was March 15th, 2016, when 24-year-old Grant Hollister made what would become his final live stream from an abandoned grain elevator in Detroit, Michigan. The freelance photographer had built a reputation exploring forgotten industrial sites across the Midwest, documenting urban decay for his YouTube channel and its 4,000 devoted subscribers. Grant possessed the kind of fearless personality that made him perfect for urban exploration. His meticulous planning had safely guided him through over 200 abandoned structures, from crumbling factories to derelict hospitals. Each expedition was carefully researched, with backup plans and professional climbing equipment, ensuring his safety. The Detroit grain elevator had been on his target list for months, a 12-story concrete monument to industrial decline that promised spectacular footage. Arriving in the early afternoon on an overcast Tuesday, Grant carried his usual arsenal of cameras, climbing gear, and emergency supplies. The building loomed before him like a brutalist sculpture, its weathered concrete walls telling stories of Detroit's manufacturing heyday. He began his live stream shortly after arrival, showing viewers the deteriorated exterior while explaining his planned route to the summit. The first several floors went flawlessly. Grant navigated crumbling staircases and debris-filled corridors with practiced ease, maintaining constant commentary about the building's history and architectural details. His audience watched as he documented layers of graffiti and structural damage, each floor revealing new evidence of decades of abandonment. Everything changed when Grant reached the upper levels. He discovered a section where the concrete flooring had partially collapsed, creating a jagged 6-foot-wide hole surrounded by twisted rebar. Attempting to position his camera for a dramatic shot of the void below, he stepped backward onto what appeared to be solid concrete flooring. The century-old structure had other plans. The weakened concrete gave way instantly, sending Grant plummeting 90 feet through multiple floors of twisted metal and concrete debris. His body struck protruding steel beams twice during the horrific descent, causing massive internal trauma and multiple compound fractures. The sickening impacts echoed through the empty building as his equipment scattered around his motionless form. The live stream feed continued for several moments, showing only the aftermath, the camera swinging wildly, a blur of debris, and finally, a horrifying silence. Viewers watched helplessly as the scene unfolded, realizing something terrible had happened. The chat exploded with desperate messages as people tried to contact emergency services from across the country. First responders arrived within half an hour, but it was far too late. Grant was pronounced dead at the scene from massive internal bleeding and traumatic brain injury. The very technology that had made him famous had captured his final moments, not in words but in stark, tragic visual evidence. It was August 7th, 2017, when 31-year-old Melinda Cross turned her Phoenix kitchen into a death trap during what should have been a routine cooking live stream. The former restaurant manager had successfully transitioned from the high-pressure world of professional kitchens to food blogging, building her cooking channel to 5,000 devoted followers who loved her bubbly personality and innovative fusion recipes. Melinda's infectious enthusiasm made even the most complex dishes seem approachable. Her background managing a busy southwestern restaurant had given her the technical skills and confidence to attempt challenging cooking methods, particularly high-heat techniques and dramatic flambeing presentations that made for compelling content. She had spent years perfecting these skills in professional kitchens, making her upcoming demonstrations seem routine. The fatal evening was meant to showcase her signature Phoenix Fire fajitas, featuring a tableside flambe that had become her trademark dish. Melinda had prepared extensively, arranging her main camera in her home kitchen and pre-measuring all ingredients. The centerpiece of her preparation was a bottle of high-proof rum, essential for creating the dramatic flames that would give the dish its name. That evening, Melinda began streaming to over 1,000 live viewers, her characteristic cheerfulness immediately evident as she greeted her audience and began preparing vegetables and marinating chicken. Everything proceeded perfectly as she demonstrated knife techniques and explained her fusion approach to traditional Mexican cuisine. The disaster began when Melinda started the flambe sequence. She poured rum over the sizzling chicken and vegetables in her large cast-iron skillet, the alcohol immediately beginning to steam from the intense heat. When she attempted to ignite the mixture with a long lighter, the flame traveled up the stream of rum still flowing from the bottle in her hand. The glass bottle cracked from the sudden heat, sending burning alcohol across Melinda's upper body and immediately igniting her loose cotton blouse. Within seconds, she was engulfed in flames from her waist up, suffering severe burns across her torso and arms. Her agonized screams filled the kitchen as she stumbled backward in panic. The situation escalated when Melinda knocked over a container of cooking oil during her desperate attempts to extinguish the flames. The oil spread fire across nearby surfaces, creating additional hazards as smoke rapidly filled the small kitchen space. Viewers watched in horror through the increasingly obscured camera feed as emergency calls flooded local dispatch. The live stream feed cut out within 90 seconds as smoke and heat overwhelmed the equipment. Emergency responders arrived within 8 minutes of the first 911 calls from viewers, but found Melinda unconscious from smoke inhalation and severe burns. She died en route to the hospital from respiratory failure and burns covering over 50% of her body. The incident sent shockwaves through the cooking content community. The brief but horrific footage, viewed by hundreds of thousands before removal, sparked widespread discussions about cooking safety and social media content creation. Phoenix Fire Department responded by offering free cooking safety seminars specifically targeted at content creators, emphasizing the unique dangers of performing for cameras. Melinda's family established a foundation promoting kitchen safety education for content creators, working with culinary schools to develop guidelines for safe filming practices. The tragedy highlighted how the pressure to create compelling content can lead to fatal miscalculations, even for experienced cooks in familiar environments. Today, Melinda's story serves as a sobering reminder that fire safety protocols become even more critical when performing for an audience, and that even routine cooking techniques carry deadly risks when proper precautions are ignored. It was June 22, 2015, when 28-year-old Tristan Avery prepared for what would become his final wingsuit flight from the towering sandstone cliffs of Moab, Utah. The professional extreme sports athlete and stunt coordinator had built his reputation on pushing boundaries, accumulating over 400 successful jumps from locations worldwide while amassing 3,000 followers across multiple social media platforms. Tristan possessed the kind of confident, risk-taking personality that made him a natural for extreme sports. His background as a stunt coordinator for action films had given him meticulous attention to safety protocols, even while pursuing increasingly dangerous challenges. The Moab location was one of his favorites, a 1,400-foot sandstone cliff formation that offered spectacular footage and challenging flight lines through the desert landscape. Weather conditions were absolutely perfect that morning, with minimal wind and crystal-clear visibility stretching across the Utah desert. Tristan had spent the previous day testing his equipment and studying wind patterns, confident that everything was aligned for another successful jump to add to his growing video collection. That morning, Tristan began his live stream with thousands of viewers watching as he conducted his pre-flight equipment check. He spent considerable time demonstrating his wingsuit, parachute system, and backup safety devices while hiking to the jump point, his enthusiasm infectious as he explained the technical aspects of the planned flight. Positioning himself at the cliff edge at 12:15, Tristan made his final preparations with the practiced efficiency of a seasoned professional. The jump began flawlessly, his wingsuit deployed correctly as he achieved the perfect gliding position, soaring through the desert air like a human bird of prey. For nearly a minute, everything went according to plan. Tristan maintained perfect form as he glided away from the cliff face, his helmet-mounted camera capturing the breathtaking landscape rushing past below. At approximately 1,200 feet above the desert floor, he began preparing for his planned parachute deployment. Then disaster struck without warning. A sudden violent downdraft caught his wingsuit with tremendous force, throwing him into an uncontrolled tumble that no amount of experience could have anticipated. The chaotic rotation made it impossible to maintain proper body position as he spun helplessly through the air, rapidly losing the altitude needed for safe parachute deployment. Fighting against the disorienting spin, Tristan managed to deploy his main parachute approximately 400 feet above the desert floor. However, the violent rotation had twisted his body position, causing the parachute lines to wrap around his torso and legs. The chute deployed partially but became fatally compromised, providing insufficient lift to slow his descent. With limited altitude remaining, Tristan attempted to deploy his reserve parachute, but the tangled main chute lines prevented proper deployment. The reserve opened partially, but couldn't generate enough drag to save him from the rapidly approaching desert floor. Tristan struck the hard-packed earth at devastating speed, suffering massive trauma that proved instantly fatal. His helmet-mounted camera was damaged on impact, but had captured the entire sequence leading up to the accident. Emergency responders reached the remote location within an hour, guided by GPS coordinates from concerned viewers who had witnessed the live stream. The footage became crucial evidence in an investigation that revealed how the unusual downdraft conditions had created a perfect storm of circumstances beyond any pilot's control. The tragedy prompted renewed focus on extreme sports safety protocols. The wingsuit community implemented enhanced weather monitoring requirements and improved training for handling emergency situations at low altitudes. Tristan's death led to a better understanding of desert cliff wind patterns and mandatory safety briefings that have since helped other pilots recognize and avoid similar conditions. The Moab wingsuit community honors Tristan's memory with improved safety standards while continuing to pursue the sport he loved, always mindful that even perfect conditions can change in an instant. It was October 13th, 2018, when 19-year-old Courtney Blake climbed to the rooftop of an abandoned factory in Cleveland, Ohio, for what would become her final social media stunt. The college sophomore studying marketing had built a following of 4,000 Instagram followers through increasingly dangerous challenges and stunts that showcased her outgoing personality and fearless approach to viral content creation. Courtney's willingness to attempt any trending challenge had made her incredibly popular among teenage followers who eagerly awaited her next death-defying post. Her previous rooftop photography sessions across Cleveland had garnered thousands of views, each location more dangerous than the last. The abandoned 6-story brick factory represented the ultimate prize, a building scheduled for demolition that would provide the perfect backdrop for her planned final rooftop series. She arrived with her boyfriend Jake, who served as her cameraman and safety spotter for these dangerous shoots. The century-old factory loomed before them, its deteriorating brick facade and broken windows creating an apocalyptic atmosphere that would photograph beautifully against the overcast autumn sky. That afternoon, Courtney began live streaming to 1,800 viewers, showing the building's imposing exterior while explaining her planned route to the roof. The climb took considerable time through deteriorated stairwells filled with debris and broken glass, Jake following closely behind with backup camera equipment. Reaching the rooftop, Courtney immediately began attempting various poses near the building's edge. Her audience watched as she performed handstands dangerously close to the 6-story drop, each stunt more reckless than the last. The crumbling brick ledge showed obvious signs of deterioration, but Courtney's focus remained on creating the perfect shot. For her finale, she decided to recreate a viral challenge that involved hanging from the building's edge by her fingertips, a stunt that had already claimed several lives across social media platforms. Despite Jake's visible nervousness, Courtney positioned herself at the ledge, gripping the weathered brick with both hands. As she lowered herself over the edge, her 115-pound weight proved too much for the century-old masonry. The brick ledge crumbled instantly, sending chunks of debris cascading toward the concrete loading dock 60 feet below. Courtney followed seconds later, her terrified scream echoing across the empty industrial district. The impact against the concrete was devastating. Courtney suffered severe skull fractures, complete spinal cord severing, and massive internal bleeding that ended her life instantly. Jake's anguished screams and frantic attempts to call for help were broadcast live for several minutes before he managed to end the stream, but the damage was already done. Paramedics arrived within 20 minutes of the fall, but Courtney was pronounced dead at the scene. The live stream footage, viewed by hundreds of thousands before removal, showed every horrific detail of her final moments, traumatizing viewers worldwide and sparking immediate controversy about social media's influence on dangerous behavior. The incident ignited nationwide discussions about platform responsibility and the pressure young people face to create increasingly dangerous content for online fame. Cleveland authorities responded by implementing stricter penalties for trespassing in abandoned buildings and increasing security patrols around known social media hotspots. Courtney's parents channeled their grief into advocacy work, becoming prominent voices for social media safety education and platform accountability for dangerous content. The factory where Courtney died has been demolished, but her story continues to serve as a cautionary tale about the deadly intersection of social media fame and teenage risk-taking behavior in America's digital age. It was January 28, 2017, when 35-year-old Derek Langston fired up his live stream for what would become his final automotive repair demonstration in his Bakersfield, California auto shop. The small business owner had built a loyal following of 3,000 subscribers who tuned into his educational streams, drawn to his methodical personality and ability to explain complex mechanical procedures in simple terms. Derek's 15 years of mechanical experience had earned him a reputation as one of Bakersfield's most trusted mechanics. His decision to live stream his work had proven brilliant for business, attracting customers who appreciated his transparent approach and educational content. Unlike flashy automotive YouTubers, Derek focused on real-world repairs that everyday drivers could relate to. The fatal day involved diagnosing and repairing a lifted pickup truck with suspected transmission problems. The 7,000-pound vehicle required Derek to work underneath it, a routine procedure he had performed hundreds of times throughout his career. His hydraulic lift system had been recently inspected and showed no signs of wear. That afternoon, Derek started his stream with several hundred live viewers watching as he explained the truck's symptoms and his diagnostic plan. His methodical approach was immediately evident as he walked viewers through proper lift procedures, emphasizing safety checks that many mechanics skip in their daily routines. For the better part of an hour, everything proceeded normally. Derek demonstrated proper lifting techniques, explained the truck's four-wheel drive system, and showed viewers how to identify transmission problems through visual inspection and fluid analysis. His audience appreciated the educational value as he prepared to remove the transmission. Later in the stream, Derek positioned himself underneath the raised truck to begin the transmission removal process. The massive vehicle loomed above him, supported by hydraulic cylinders that had never failed in his shop's 10-year history. As he worked to disconnect transmission lines, he noticed hydraulic fluid beginning to leak from the primary lift cylinder. Instead of immediately lowering the vehicle and investigating the leak, Derek made a fatal decision. Confident in his experience and eager to complete the repair for his audience, he attempted to tighten the hydraulic fitting while remaining underneath the truck. The compromised hydraulic seal had other plans. The seal failed catastrophically without warning. The lift dropped instantly, bringing 7,000 pounds of steel crashing down onto Derek's chest and abdomen. The impact caused immediate massive internal trauma, crushing his ribcage and rupturing vital organs, while pinning him helplessly beneath the vehicle. Derek's legs and arms remained visible to the camera, continuing to move for a brief time as he struggled beneath the crushing weight. The live stream captured his muffled cries for help and the sound of his increasingly labored breathing as internal bleeding and organ failure took their toll. A customer who heard the commotion immediately called 911, but Derek's injuries were beyond medical intervention. He died from crushing injuries and massive internal bleeding within minutes of the lift failure. His final breaths broadcast live to hundreds of horrified viewers. The incident triggered immediate industry-wide safety reviews. OSHA investigators discovered that the hydraulic seal failure resulted from a known manufacturing defect that had affected dozens of similar lift systems nationwide. New regulations emerged, requiring redundant safety systems for automotive lifts used in filmed content. Derek's family received a substantial settlement from the lift manufacturer, which they used to establish a foundation promoting automotive safety education. Today, his tragedy serves as a reminder that equipment failures can strike without warning. It was September 4, 2016, when 26-year-old Angela Rowe arrived at Yellowstone National Park's Norris Geyser Basin for what would become her final wildlife biology research expedition. The graduate student had built her Wild Science channel to 5,000 followers through her patient, scientific personality and genuine passion for conservation education, making complex ecological concepts accessible to viewers worldwide. Angela's academic background in wildlife biology had given her extensive experience with extreme environments, particularly thermal features where unique microbial life thrived in conditions that would kill most organisms. Her thesis research focused on thermal pool ecosystems, and she had obtained special permits to film in Yellowstone's restricted areas for educational content. The Norris Geyser Basin represented the perfect location for her research, known for having some of the hottest thermal features in the park, with temperatures regularly exceeding 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Angela was particularly excited about documenting a newly formed hot spring that had appeared following recent seismic activity in the region. That morning, Angela began streaming to nearly 900 live viewers, explaining thermal pool formation and the remarkable extremophile organisms that somehow managed to survive in these hellish conditions. Her enthusiasm was infectious, as she described the delicate mineral formations and rainbow-colored bacterial mats that created Yellowstone's otherworldly landscape. For over an hour, Angela safely documented various pools while maintaining proper distances and following park safety protocols to the letter. Her scientific approach impressed viewers as she explained the chemistry behind the superheated water and acidic conditions that made these features so dangerous to human life. Later in her stream, she approached the newly formed thermal pool to collect water samples for her research. The pool appeared stable, surrounded by what looked like solid mineral crust that had formed over months of thermal activity. Angela positioned her sampling equipment carefully, following procedures she had used successfully countless times before. The thin mineral crust had other plans. As Angela leaned forward to collect her sample, the seemingly solid ground gave way under her weight, sending her tumbling backward into the 185-degree acidic water with a splash that would haunt viewers forever. The superheated water immediately began causing devastating chemical and thermal burns to over 80% of her body. The acidic composition, similar to battery acid, ate through her clothing and skin, while the extreme temperature caused instant third-degree burns that penetrated to the bone. Angela's agonized screams lasted briefly before shock and respiratory failure from inhaling superheated steam rendered her unconscious. The thermal pool's acidic water continued its deadly work, even as she floated motionless, her body chemistry unable to cope with the extreme conditions. Park rangers arrived quickly after receiving emergency calls from horrified viewers, but safety protocols prevented immediate extraction from the acidic pool. The water's extreme temperature and chemical composition made rescue attempts impossible without specialized equipment. Angela was pronounced dead at the scene from severe thermal burns, chemical burns, and respiratory failure. The incident led to increased safety barriers and warning systems around Yellowstone's thermal features. New regulations were implemented requiring additional safety equipment and mandatory spotters for all research filming in thermal areas. Angela's research was completed posthumously by her colleagues and contributed to important discoveries about extremophile organisms, ensuring that her scientific legacy would continue advancing human understanding of life in extreme conditions. These tragic moments remind us how quickly things can go wrong. Click the next video for more shocking content like this.